So for more insight, we welcome Brigadier General in the Reserves, Israel Relik Shafir, former commander in the Tel North Air Force Base and former combat pilot in the Israeli Air Force, and Yaki Dayan, former Israeli consul in Los Angeles. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here. David Barnea heads to Qatar tomorrow. So much at stake. We're hearing about cautious optimism out of the US. Yaki, let's start with you. Your thoughts. How optimistic are you?
So I would say that there are 4 red lines, and it's interesting to see what will happen with those red lines. The first one, in terms of Israel, that we agree with the Americans, is that a complete cessation of war is not an option, and till you eradicate the military and the administrative capabilities of the Hamas. The other ones are moving back the population to the northern part of Gaza. This is a big question, whether the Americans would accept that as a red line. The other one is the buffer zone that Israel wants to create, and here we know that this is unacceptable by the Americans. And the fourth red line is the prisoners or the terrorists that are going to be released from the Israeli jails. Those are the 4 red lines, and it's a big question whether Israel would agree to back from one of those red lines. And if yes, so then the ball is in the Hamas court, I would say. And the Hamas obviously is still playing. They are insisting on the return, the cessation of war completely. So there are demands that the Hamas are still insisting, and it would be interesting to see whether they will be able, by a Qatari pressure, to back from those demands.
What do you make of the Qatari pressure right now on Hamas to reach some kind of common ground and to do it urgently?
Well, it's not just the Hamas, it's also Israel. I think that the red lines that Yaki just mentioned, is really only one red line, which is a complete stoppage of the war, cessation of military activities. That's not going to happen. All the rest are all questions of decision by Israel and obviously Hamas. But for Israel, these are not really red lines because there are different shades to those red. In the north of Gaza, how many are able to return to the north of Gaza, the buffer zone that's unacceptable to the Americans and to the international community, etc., etc. So I think it's a problem of internal politics in Israel more than anything else. And Israel is prone to pressure from many sides, including inside Israel. And so there's really only one red line that the Israeli public is supporting, which is the eradication of Hamas, like as Yaki mentioned.
Your thoughts on what a pause in the fighting would mean, not from a military point of view, but just giving time for Hamas to regroup in that time. Is it something Israel can look at right now?
No doubt. I mean, they can regroup, but Israel can regroup as well. So they both can take the time to continue the fight. The only problem is that the Americans sees some kind of interim secession as an exit strategy. So eventually, at the end of the day, what they see is that this thing, even if it's an interim, it's one stage in the hostage deal, that would lead to a complete cessation of war. This is what the Americans want to see. So that could lead to that. So it's more not on the military side, but rather on the diplomatic side. How much pressure is going to be put on Israel to stop the war completely? Because this is exactly the exit strategy that the Americans are looking for.
We're going to take a deeper look at all these issues right now. Stay with us. We've got more to discuss. Still in studio, Brigadier General in the Reserves, Israel Relik Shafir, your thoughts about the moral compass that is being lost?
Well, Netanyahu is really not talking to the world leaders. He's talking to his base, trying to garner support for his policies. Of course, he's not mentioning anything about the day after, and the fact that all these countries that he's calling or talking to have supported Israel and have asked, what is your policy for the day after, which he will not put forward for internal political reasons. including his own political survival. And so, being one of the best spokespersons you've ever seen, he's trying to divert the pressure, and he's really talking to the base and to the right-wing political parties. So that's about all we can say about this.
But he's angry, Yaki Dayan, and he's angry as well with the United States. He's angry with Chuck Schumer. He's angry with Joe Biden. You know the landscape in the US right now. What do you make of the message that is being sent to Washington as well?
So listen, I agree with Relik. I mean, this game completely is now in the political sphere. Everybody's speaking to his base, whether it's President Biden and the Congress, Schumer or Nancy Pelosi and others, or Netanyahu. It's not for the first time that we have such a crisis with the United States. What is different is that, the political center in the United States is disappearing. The Republicans are moving much more towards the right, isolationists, and the left, or the Democrats, are moving much more towards the left and to the progressiveness. And the big base that Israel had, the bipartisan support in the center, is disappearing in the United States. This is a political thing that is happening, and we are suffering out of that. So what we see now is that each one is talking to his base, whether it's the Democrats or the Democratic administration or Netanyahu. The only thing that the administration has to understand, that when they are emphasizing or insisting on the two-state solution or having an early elections in Israel, the only thing that they are creating is they're reinforcing Netanyahu, basically, because he's putting himself as the last obstacle between the American pressure or the international pressure and a Palestinian state. So politically, it reinforces Netanyahu. And that's the only thing that comes out of it. But we have to remember, the Americans are in a political year, and it's election year in the United States. Netanyahu is talking to his base. So this whole conversation became political, and this is very unfortunate. And now, more than ever, it's even dangerous.
Donald Trump also weighing in a short while ago, saying Joe Biden is dumping Israel. We'll take a look at that romance, broken romance, past relationship, future relationship in a short while. Stay with us. And still in studio, Brigadier General in the Reserves, Israel Relik Shafir. This exchange across that northern front has been happening regularly, almost daily, for the better part of this war. And we keep on hearing tit for tat is the expression, skirmishes also the expression. We keep on hearing Hezbollah has claimed responsibility for hitting certain targets, or at least trying to, but no one was hurt. How long can this continue, the so-called status quo, until it is a fully fledged escalation?
There won't be a fully fledged escalation. Neither side wants to have one. Neither do the Iranians, and certainly not the U.S. or France. What we're really fighting for is the day after. Once we hit a ceasefire of some kind, or an end to the military onslaught in Gaza, Hezbollah will stop shooting. So when that happens, what Israel wants is to dictate a couple of things. First of all, move any Hezbollah warriors north of at least 10 kilometers, have a full air supremacy and the right to hit Hezbollah south of that 10-kilometer zone at will. And in lieu of that, or at least as a payment, maybe pay with a few border changes along the Israeli-Lebanon front, where Hezbollah can show that they've gained something from this campaign, so to speak. So this is what each side is trying to maneuver for the day after agreement on what will happen in southern Lebanon. Israel cannot allow itself to have Hezbollah south of at least 10 kilometers from the border. Otherwise, our inhabitants won't go back to their homes. And that is the state of affairs at this time. And at the end of the day, again, Israel's supremacy in an area close to the border, removal of Hezbollah under some kind of an understanding.
We keep on hearing neither side wants a fully fledged escalation. At the same time, we keep on hearing if there's just one mistake, which has happened in the past, things could boil over into something that could be hugely dangerous. And of course, Hezbollah's arsenal far different from what we have already experienced at the hands of Hamas.
Yes, that is always possible. But I think the chances of a full-fledged war are minimal. From both sides understand that they only have something to lose rather than gain.
Yaki, your thoughts?
Listen, I do believe that in 2024, the only thing that we can see is a short-term solution, a diplomatic solution, because I agree, no one wants to see a war, a full-fledged war. And more than that, the Americans are in an election year. They will do their utmost to prevent any kind of an escalation up in the north. So what I think is that we have to increase fire now, because things will be determined only now. Afterwards, we'll see some kind of a band-aid with diplomatic solution, a short-term diplomatic solution, and we can improve our positions only now by increasing the fire and making a statement that will serve us afterwards. And this diplomatic solution for 2024. 2025 is going to be a different year with a different president, or maybe the same one, but it won't be an election year, and things will look different. So this is how I see 2024.
Also on this day, alleged Israeli strikes hitting Hezbollah weapons depots near Damascus. That's a completely different front. Your concerns in terms of what could be happening across the Syrian border?
Well, that had happened for the last 5 to 6 years, at least. And before that, there was a quiet war where things were not out in the open. That has been going on for many years. And the Iranian sent munitions to the Damascus area or Hama area, and then shipped over through the Lebanese-Syrian border. And Israel's taking those munitions out as best they can. We've also recently seen attacks in the Baalbek area of munition depots, and an escalation, by the way, could take place if we hit too strongly and Hezbollah hits, let's say, the refineries in Haifa. It's going to be a different ballgame, though this will not incite a full-scale war, to my assertion.
Well, there is lots of comfort in your assertion, but given what you're saying, how likely is it that the tens of thousands of people living in northern Israel who have been evacuated, living in Tiberias and further south, are waiting for that green light, so to speak, to get back to their homes? What kind of timeframes are realistic, given what you're saying?
Several months at least. Same goes for the Lebanese on the other side, who I doubt very much if they will return at all. It's about the same number.
Your thoughts?
Absolutely. This is the target eventually. We have to bring safely the Israeli citizens back to their homes, and it's completely understandable. But taking into consideration that now no one wants to see a full-scale war, we won't see that. So the other assurances have to be given to them, at least short-term assurances. And then in the long term, I see that the situation, the full-scale war is unavoidable.
We wait and we see. We'll unpack more of the details in a very short while. Gentlemen, stay with us. We're taking a very quick break. But when we get back, our rolling coverage continues on this breaking news edition. Stay tuned. Back in a bit, in just 2 minutes. Brigadier General in the Reserves, Israel Relik Shafir, the Rafah operation continues to be a prime concern for international leaders. Your thoughts on what we just heard from the German Chancellor?
Well, Israel made a mistake when, at the beginning of this war, it didn't go for the Rafah area, perhaps because we didn't want to infuriate the Egyptians. But this has proven to be a very thorny point. Now we have to go in very carefully, maybe at a higher cost, because we can't have a wall of fire right in front of the soldiers as we chase Hamas down in the tunnels. So it'll be a very careful sting operations, maybe special commando operations in certain areas, maybe moving some of the civilians out of the way over a limited area. You can't move 1.3 million people hastily anywhere. So this will be a different attitude than we saw before. What the chancellor is saying, actually, and we'll repeat this, and everybody repeats this, what is the day after? Because if Israel would present a day after plan of what it sees in Gaza, then it could garner support from the West. But it doesn't put down a plan, or we don't put down a plan, then those countries are asking, well, what are you doing this for? What do you see the next day? Especially when the extreme right attack the government from within for even thinking about humanitarian aid, or are completely oblivious of the hostage families, showing no empathy. So in this particular manner, this is creating a lot more problems than could have been if the government would be thinking about Israel's best interests. So unfortunately, we're actually intertwined into internal politics and external ones with no clear solution to the day after. And this is part of the tragedy that we're actually facing every day now.